Welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakeley. On this week's program, spring has arrived after what seemed like a horrendous winter based on snowfall, but temperature-wise, it was not far off the mark. We look back at the winter and forward to what the spring holds in store. Barrie Police are hoping to get access to all of the city's closed-circuit cameras. Police Chief Rich Johnston is here to explain why. Barrie Colts, 2 games away from the OHL playoffs. The McLaren Arts Centre wants to bring you on board and give you something special in return. And Rock 95's Macaulay has been working up a sweat again this March for charity, an annual effort where you can get him to do your dirty work. We get the conversation started after this. Spring has sprung, arrived just after 5 this morning, not a moment too soon for many. We're joined by climatologist David Phillips. We'll get to spring in a moment, but first, David, all that talk we've done about the winter of our youth and, well...
Dan, I wasn't here as a young guy, but I can imagine. I mean, I hear stories about what it's like in the Barrie, Orillia, the Muskoka area, and boy, it was kind of a good old-fashioned classic kind of a winter. Not from a temperature point of view, but it certainly was from the snow, really from the get-go. I remember hearing all that news about the amount of snow at the end of November, the last couple of days of November, and then the early couple of days of December up in Gravenhurst, 140 centimeters of snow, my gosh, and yet Barrie had only a trace of snow on that. So it was very local, a very, very in your backyard kind of thing, but certainly we saw a beginning of the snow season. It was almost as if nature was giving us a kind of a dress rehearsal of what we were going to see for the rest of the winter. Certainly in the Barrie area, snow didn't come flying around until the very end of November, and we got about normal amount in December, but boy, in January, February, it was almost as if the lake was still wide open. The cold air arrived, and we got lake effect in its classic kind of way. If you ever wanted to do an analysis of lake effect storms, boy, this was the year to do it. We ended up in terms of the entire winter, and yet I must caution you that we still get snow in spring in the Barrie, Orillia, and Collingwood area. I mean, I always say, if you get snow, I just say, well, what nature giveth, it can also taketh away, because the next day the sun can come out, or the rain, and it'll melt. So I think you can put away the snow shovel, but generally, Dan, on average, from the first day of spring on, right through to April, and my gosh, we've had it in May too, we typically get about 23 centimeters of snow, 9% of what we normally do, and you can count flakes on about 8 days. Temperature-wise, it was kind of, I know you're going to be surprised by it when I say, well, it was actually a little bit warmer than normal. And when we look at December, January, February, the temperature came out to be about minus 5.6. Normal would be minus 5.9. So it was kind of what I would describe as normal, slightly warmer than normal. 4 days where the temperature fell below minus 20. We normally would see about 10 or 11 of those. So certainly those are real cold days. There were some of them, but they certainly weren't as cold as we've seen in other years. And when you compare it to last year, it's like night and day. I mean, we average temperature last year was something like about minus 1.5 compared to the minus 5.6 this year. No days below minus 20 last year, and yet we had 4 this year. So, and then there was less snow last year. Certainly, we didn't even get to 200 centimeters of snow, and we had in total so far, and I say so far, we've had 330 centimeters of snow in the Barrie area, which is about 35% more than you normally would get by this time. So certainly it has been the year of the winter of the snows, been a lot of shoveling it. I think people in the Barrie area are probably in better shape than they have been for a couple of years.
If we weren't, we are now.
Exactly, honest to God. And it was clearly a good example of the fact that, hey, if you think global warming means just nothing but warm, 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 and snow, snow, snow ahead. Well, think about it. Sometimes nature fools us and gives us what you described right away as a sort of a classic, traditional kind of a winter of our youth situation. And not that the lakes were so covered with ice. They only, I think, it's the greatest extent of ice was only about half of the Lake Huron, and more of Georgian Bay was covered with ice. But what we then saw, about almost as if when the lake effect was kind of tired of dumping on us, we then began to see these storms coming from the Pacific coast, Alberta Clippers, Colorado lows, Texas lows, that seemed to come into Ontario and bring an equal amount of snow from places from Windsor to Ottawa. And that's when Toronto and Ottawa got buried, not from lake effect, but clearly from that. And certainly in the Barrie area, we got a lot of that snow in sort of the after the Valentine's Day was more sort of from American snow as opposed to some of it in our own backyard.
And now we're into that period where the temperature's up, the temperature's down, and back up again, but until we get right into spring, and then it starts to stay a little bit constant.
You're right. I mean, this is really, truly the mud season, the flood season. It is the maple syrup season. It is the time when you get temperatures during the day are usually melting, and they're freezing at night. And that's the ideal kind of setup. I know people want spring to be here today, and it'll feel like, this week we're going to see temperatures that are going to be kind of mild going into the first day of spring. But I mean, I think that's kind of like false spring in a way. I mean, we're going to see some cooler. We're going to still see a little bit of snow or flurry or that kind of activity. But it really now is the transition season. This is the spring season. It is when, nature can't make up its mind what it wants to give you, and you're wearing out your body-changing clothes. I mean, you can't put the winter gear away, but you kind of want to bring the summer stuff out. You want to have that layered down look, but nature doesn't really give you the signal yet to do that in a consistent kind of way. But typically what we see in the spring is we have this kind of back and forth yo-yo kind of temperature swing, and then you get where you have 3 days where it's been mild, and then back into the kind of cold. Somebody says there's a cold front coming through, and then that lasts for maybe a couple of days, and then the next warmth comes in and lasts 5 days, and then you're back to maybe a day or two of cool, and then so it kind of like sort of tests you out. It kind of just feels you out as to how the season is going to play out. We also see a change in terms of the precipitation. We tend to see in April, we usually get, for example, on a temperature point of view, it's the first month of the year that we see the average temperature is above the freezing mark instead of below the freezing mark. We also see a lot more rain than snow. Typically, March gives you more snow than rain, but in the Barrie area, April gives you more rain than snow, maybe 5 times as much rain as snow. You hear about April showers. Well, clearly we get that, and we had that last year, almost 3 times the amount of rain that we normally would get. It was pretty soggy and we didn't have had much snow, but boy, this year there's concern is we've already seen some flooding issues in our region, and we still have some snow to melt. We still have the ground to unfreeze. It's really like cement in some places. You can't sort of dig into the ground, and so we need to kind of bring on that to help us cushion the blow from a real fast warm-up, which will melt all the snow and thaw the ground out and create some standing water and some around all the creeks and the rivulets. I mean, it's very cold water. It's also very slippery, and so we have to be careful about with our pets and children going and visiting those areas. There's always the babbling brooks is always a draw at this time of the year, and you want to be careful about that as the ice begins to go. But we really begin to see the sun also. We're gaining, Dan, about almost 3 minutes a day in terms of the sun. and that is the quickest change from that we see. The greatest amount of daylight every day is the greatest now than any time during the year. And so we're gaining that. The sun is also higher in the sky. It's almost, I think it's about 45 degrees at angle from the horizon. So there's some warmth. You walk along the streets of Collingwood and Orillia and Barrie, you can actually feel that heat. And so we're beginning to see nature's going to begin to wake up. I think you also begin to smell spring. That's how I see spring, is you begin to smell the earthy smells that when nature comes alive and the ground begins to thaw out. So it's going to happen, but it's going to take its sweet time. And of course, we always know that April's the cruel month, and cruel because I think we think that we're owed warm spring-like weather, and nature has a different agenda. And so we just have to wait it. But I always think you got to be patient. If we got a rush to spring, we'd have problems. Farmers would have problems in standing water, and there would be flood issues, and we've had so much snow that presents a problem. Our models are showing for, say, the month of April, we're showing warmer than normal, normal to warmer than normal, and we're showing precipitation to be a little on the dry side. So, but again, I mean, our precipitation models are just, we never brag about getting it right because it's not something that science can deliver right now. And but then the longer term, the sort of the April, May, and June period, we're again showing warmer than normal. The models all seem to suggest that, or near normal. It's not, as they say, going to be a rush to spring, not like last spring. Last spring was very wet and very warm, but this one looks like it's going to take its sweet time.
David, thank you for this. We'll look forward to meeting with you on the waterfront to get the full summer forecast.
That is an appointment we will surely make.
Barrie Police have their eye on the eyes the city has, keeping an eye on parts of the city. The closed-circuit cameras, majority of them downtown. Police Chief Rich Johnston telling Barrie 360's Ian MacLennan why and what safeguards would be in place to protect the privacy of innocent residents.
The police service is working with the city of Barrie to access the city's traffic management camera system. Before we jump in, what does the Barrie Police Service already have in terms of accessing cameras?
So the Barrie Police Service has a CCTV program that's been in place since 2012, so not new, and it's been almost exclusively in the downtown area. And that was actually put in place with a relationship with the city, an ask of the city for public safety. And those cameras have been up and running for a while, so that's set.
You want to take another step with traffic management camera system. Why?
So as we look to our community and we listen to our community, and there's an expectation on behalf of the police that we're providing public safety. That goes beyond simple in the downtown. It's everywhere. And as you can recognize, we're a growing city and we have traffic issues. Those cameras are already in place, but we also have other issues that I think as a public safety service, it's our responsibility to do as much as possible. And for example, I'm gonna mention missing people. And we've had instances where, when we have a missing child or a missing vulnerable population, someone in our vulnerable population, there's expectations placed on the police, as there should be, that we're going to be using as many resources as is necessary, but doing as much as possible to bring that person home safely.
I know Vancouver recently went with the police in terms of accessing those traffic management cameras. Concerns were expressed, though, how they'll be accessed. When will they be accessed? Do you need a search warrant? So what protocols are in place or should be in place?
So we erred on the side of caution. We, as public safety, we police by consent in this city and across Canada. So we have a number of stops in place to ensure that those cameras are used responsibly and they are audited on a regular basis. And so there's a long list of things that we can speak to that will address those concerns.
Are there guidelines in the Police Services Act or with the municipality, or does each municipality have their own set of rules?
Oh no, well that may be the case, but I'll let the listeners know that the Privacy Commissioner of Ontario has a very detailed expectations of anyone looking to do things like that. And we actually had a privacy impact assessment. It's not mandated. It's highly recommended. And in our privacy impact assessment done by a third-party consultant, so it wasn't the Barrie Police creating their own. We actually went out outside of our organization, as did the city. There's a long list of requirements for the city police to maintain standards that will be audited yearly on a number of things in terms of access, who can access it, when they can access it, and the checking of those logs. And every 3 years, an outside body coming in and auditing those audits, as well as looking at that. It is incredibly restrictive in terms of that access.
Who would be able, from the Barrie Police Service, to access the video footage from those cameras, and who says yes and no?
So there's a digital evidence management unit. And as you can imagine, the Barrie Police Service, there's a lot of digital evidence these days, body-worn camera being one of them. And it is a select few within our service. Now, having said that, and I will be crystal clear and unapologetic about this, if we have a natural disaster or an emergency situation, we are going to flash up those cameras live if we have to. But that will be captured in terms of auditing who's there. But the reality is, if we have a lifetime incident, a child goes missing, last seen in this area, I would hope our community expects the police to look at those cameras as opposed to not, and then trying to go find a child where we could have looked at that to assist us as well as attending.
Where do you balance public safety and privacy? Because concerns were expressed in Vancouver, too, that I'm being monitored. Well, they're already being monitored because the cameras are there. So is it just because it's the police that's that added layer?
Perhaps. To be crystal clear, they will not be monitored 24/7 by us. They will.
Is it an as-needs basis?
It is. It is recorded, but it's held for 20 days. And if it's accessed within those 20 days, it has to have an incident number attached. It's, again, within an audit log that who did it, when they're accessing it, why they accessed it. So there's a long list of requirements that have to be met, but it's not being accessed regularly. Now, after those 20 days, it gets dumped. It's just all that data is removed. It's none of our business for the most part.
But if you need it for evidence, it stays.
Absolutely.
Obviously.
For those specific incidents with a specific occurrence number. We have to be very cautious, and we do recognize that. People are entitled to their privacy, and we're trying to balance public safety with privacy, and this is the way we think it's responsible, and that's why we had it captured in our privacy impact assessment.
Where else in Ontario do we have a situation where Barrie would like to be in where you're accessing traffic management cameras?
I can't speak to specific other areas because, to be fair, I think each community has their own areas to address. Our approach to this was to be transparent as possible, and thus we have a meeting coming up this Tuesday between 6:30 and 8:30 at the Barrie Police Station, where you can speak with some people in our digital evidence management unit, our IT people, as well as some of our sworn members, including myself, will be on hand to answer questions. We want the community to understand why we're doing what we're doing. That's the most important part, and to put to rest any concerns, and just to remind them we're here to help. And at the end of the day, we're not keeping it. We just, if it's needed, we would like to have access to it for 20 days, and if not, it's gone. So.
And what is the sort of rollout or protocol after you have this public meeting? Where, at a timeline?
Well, shortly after, you'll see our website go live. We're not hiding. So wherever there are cameras in the city, we'll be on a map, and you can go over and it'll show you which ones are which ones are Barrie Police cameras, which ones are city ones. We're not duplicating where there's city traffic cams because, well, that would be irresponsible financially. So what we're going to do is, but you'll see on the mapping where they are, and also on our website, which will be days after we host this meeting, there's an area where you can ask questions, put in comments, and there's even the contact for the Privacy Commissioner. We are going to be as transparent as possible but still deliver public safety.
What's the approval process? Does this have to come from the police board or the city council, or is it just an acknowledgement from the municipality? Go ahead.
Well, this has been years in the back and forth in terms of making sure that we're addressing all the city's concerns as well as our police service concerns, as well as taking into account the privacy commissioners' the expectations when one is conducting this kind of approach, as well as that are captured in our privacy impact assessment. So it's not been an overnight thing.
The CCTV infrastructure, can you give us an example where that played a key role in investigative purposes, minor or major?
So the major one that I'll speak to, there was an incident down at Meridian Square, an unfortunate incident where an individual was gravely injured. There wasn't a lot of people around. We do have an incredibly safe city, but in this incident, there was an altercation earlier in a liquor licensed establishment, and then later on, something boiled over. As a result of that, an individual was assaulted. We were able to immediately investigate that shortly thereafter, not simply from the individual who was sent to the hospital, but from that camera footage. And it allowed us to identify the individuals and bring them to justice. That is an expectation, I would think, of our community, of a public safety service.
And in some cases like that, or missing persons, time is of the essence, so that you call an extra tool in the toolbox, maybe?
Absolutely. We had an incident, and it was last year. It was a missing child. She was 9 years old, last seen wandering toward the downtown. There are things in policing we care about. Missing children are one of the primary. I cannot overemphasize that. We didn't have those access to cameras. They're not recorded by the city now, the traffic cam. If they're last seen and they're going by an intersection, don't you want your police to know and to be able to act on that faster? And yes, we would have accessed those cameras live time immediately for that purpose. Absolutely, every day of the week.
Our thanks to Chief Johnston for taking the time to stop by to discuss this matter. Final weekend of the OHL regular season coming up. The Barrie Colts have locked up top spot in the Central Division, still battling for first place in the Eastern Conference, but that'll be a tall order, sitting 3 back of Brantford, which has a game in hand. Barrie 360's Will Conkin and Colts broadcaster and writer Gene Pereira with how the Colts got to this point.
Gene, we're just about wrapping up the regular season for the OHL. The Barrie Colts, they lost to the Brampton Steelheads 4-1, then survived 2 overtime games, 4-3 over the Sarnia Sting and 5-4 against the North Bay Battalion. Gene, could this have easily been an 0-3 week for the guys?
Well, when you look at it, Will, and the way they started, it wasn't, I thought, their best effort against Brampton, that 4-1 loss. I thought Barrie, again, didn't have a push up front and really generated a little offense. Gave up 51 shots, and Rebick was outstanding. I kind of felt for the goaltender there, but not a great effort. You look at it, so you start, with a loss on the road and a not great effort, and then you're coming home to face a Sarnia team that is desperate to make the playoffs, and then you got to go back out Sunday afternoon against North Bay, another team that's fighting for its playoff life. So, it could have easily been, a tough weekend for the Barrie Colts, but, much better efforts on Saturday and Sunday, and they were able to turn it into a winning weekend.
Keishon Aitchison, he continues to impress. Broke the record for goals by a defenseman after netting his 24th goal of the season in the Sting game. Talk about that, Gene.
Yeah, it's just been an outstanding year. It all coming, when you got the pressures of being one of the top prospects for the NHL draft. Those scouts are in the stands every night looking to watch, as you go through this. And really happy for Keishon and the accomplishment. Being the likes, a couple of really big names there, Aaron Ekblad and Brent Clark he was tied with, and Andrew Marshall and other guys. So obviously a big moment for Keishon, and a big relief. There was a couple of games he was trying to get that record-setting 24th goal, and he ends up finishing the weekend with 25. But talking to Keishon and that winning goal, and again, as it's been all year with him, his goals come at big times, whether it's an overtime winner or whether it was like Saturday's, which tied the game in the final minute to send it into overtime. And kind of Jelsma shot. The rebound came right to Keyshawn Aitchison, and I asked him, I go, what were you thinking when that puck was coming your way? And he goes, don't miss. So, I mean, obviously, he had the open cage, he buried it, and, just a great feat for the young defenseman, and really, really a complete, you look at his game, and, able to provide the offense. He's just a physical force out there, and just having such a big year, and it's really nice to see him get rewarded.
And you said in your write-up about the North Bay game, former battalion trio Dallin Blakeley, Owen Van Steensel, and Anthony Romani left a lasting impression. Talk about that too. Yeah,
obviously for these guys going back into where they spent their, the most of their junior careers in North Bay, they're a big part of that team that made 3 straight conference finals, and you go into a building where you've called home and it could be your last game, and that's always going through your mind. And for Dallin Blakeley, it certainly was. He had a lot of fans waiting for him there before the game and then after the game to talk to him. So still those guys are still favorites up there. Him, Van Steensel, and Romani, and to have a big game like that, and maybe what your final game where Wakely had 2 goals, 2 assists, and Steensel the overtime winner. It certainly Dallin talked about leaving a lasting impression, and I think they did that. And they can be happy. It's likely their last game in North Bay as junior players, and to leave it that way, I'm sure they get the team get a big win, are instrumental, and get to say goodbye to the fans.
Absolutely. And Tristan Bertucci made his return after a long outage. What did you make of his return, and what does he add to the team?
Yeah, Bertucci's return obviously big for Barrie. I mean, just, again, a first-round pick of the All-Stars, and, again, one of these top prospects that, he's so important to Barrie back there. He's such a good puck mover. He's so smart, logs a ton of minutes, plays in any situation, be it power play, penalty kill. And to have him back there as a guy that's going to settle things down and get the puck moving the other way is a big part of the offense in that sense with the transition game. And, obviously he come back. He hadn't played since February 1st, and he expected to be a little bit tired. He was in his first game on Saturday there against Sarnia, but I thought he played really well for a guy that hadn't played in over a month. He looked pretty solid out there, and was able to bounce back again Sunday afternoon. Back-to-back games. I thought he fared fairly well, and you can see the difference back there. Having him back there is for Barrie, and another big important factor, Will, was that he was able to come back before the end of the season. That he's not going into the playoffs straight cold. That he's going to be able to get 4 games under his belt here before the playoffs. For a guy kind of and that chance to knock off that rust and get back into top form.
Yeah, for those 2 games, the last ones of the regular season, the Colts go at the Owen Sound Attack tonight at Sadlin, then host Niagara on Saturday. Gene, what's the recipe for these 2?
Yeah, I think Marty Williamson. Obviously, the opportunity here. They're 3 points starting the week, 3 points behind Brantford for top spot. But Marty Williamson talked about the fact that he wants them playing good hockey, and that's important going into the playoffs, especially for a team that's been up and down here in the second half. You want to get on that right path, and they were able to do that over the weekend here, and you want to continue that. But of course, Thursday night will be a tough contest against an Owen Sound team again that is in a huge dogfight at that bottom of that Western Conference with Sarnia and Sault Ste. Marie to try to lock up a playoff spot. So they're going to be a desperate team. In that way it's good because both teams, for Barrie, they're looking to improve their game and they're facing a team that's desperate. And you want that competition, so that'll be a tough one. And then Saturday night, of course, against the Niagara Ice Dogs. Again, another team that's really kind of struggled down the stretch here, a team that is looking like is going to be their first-round playoff opponent. So, a couple of good tests. But I think for Marty Williamson, it's all about thinking about, what they need to do as a team and getting ready for the playoffs and, to play some good hockey. Obviously, you want your best playing in the playoffs, but you got to go in there, feeling good and confident. And if Barrie can pick up a couple of wins, that would give them 4 straight, and it'd be a good way to go into the playoffs.
Next time we chat, we'll tee up who will they be lined up with. Another great one. Thanks as always, Gene.
Thanks, Will.
This is what Barrie's talking about from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakeley, joined by Andrea Arajo, a development officer for the MacLennan Arts Center downtown, here to talk about a special event coming up very soon.
Yes, so the MacLennan Arts Center has our Benefactor Art Exchange coming up on Thursday, March 27th. It's from 6:30 to about 9 p.m. and it's a great event for benefactors. So what that means is you sign up to be a benefactor of the MacLennan Arts Center and you get to take home a piece of art on loan for 1 year. And it's a rather unique program. I don't know if many galleries do this kind of thing, but it does a number of things. It supports the gallery and our fundraising initiatives, and it also introduces people to art. And you don't have to be an expert in the art world. You can simply sign up and come and just pick an artwork that you really like and maybe resonate with.
This is kind of neat because you're getting the artwork out into the community. Somebody's home, somebody comes to visit, they see it, say, wow, that's great. Where did you get that? And, I got it at the MacLennan Arts Center. Oh, that's awesome. And then they get interested too. They may not have even known what MacLennan was all about.
Exactly. And I think this program does best with word of mouth. I have only really heard of benefactors coming in and signing up because they heard it from a friend or a colleague. And because a lot of businesses too get involved. We have a lot of doctors or lawyers or businesses in the community that also sign up to be a benefactor, to have a piece of artwork in their office. So yeah, I think it is a word of mouth kind of program. And it's a great conversation starter when you have maybe a friend or a guest come over to your home and they see a wild, unique piece of art on your wall.
For sure.
And because you can get artwork from, big box stores and they're kind of carbon copies. Mm-hmm. But these artworks are completely unique. They're a lovely reflection of our region, of Barrie, of Simcoe County. There's a lot of artworks that are landscapes, for example. There was an artwork that was in the Benefactor Art Exchange last year that was of the marina downtown in Barrie. And you instantly know what that is because we're all familiar with the waterfront. And it's nice to be able to relate to the artwork on your wall.
Yeah. This is nothing new. You've been doing this for quite a while.
Yes. So the Benefactor program has been around at the MacLennan for over 20 years now, and it's been very successful. It's been growing ever since its inception. We have benefactors since the very beginning of time who have been so loyal and keep coming back for new artworks. And I think that's the interesting thing, too, about the Benefactor Art Exchange, where you can take home a piece of art on loan, and then if you want to switch it up, you can bring it back and switch it out, or you have the option of purchasing it at the end of the year. So you can actually start to build your art collection with these artworks. And it's a simple way to do it, and it's a fun way to do it. Yeah.
So how do I become a benefactor? What's involved in that?
So we have lots of options of how to sign up to be a benefactor of the MacLennan Arts Center. You can go online on our webpage, on our support section. It says Become a Benefactor. You can call us at the MacLennan. You can ask for me, Andrea, and I can get you signed up, ready to go for the event. There's also, you can come and visit us in person at the MacLennan on Mulcaster Street. And yeah, those are mainly the three options of how people can sign up.
Is there a set amount that you have to invest, I guess, to become a benefactor?
Yes. So for a benefactor, it's $1.37 a day. So in total, it's $500. But a large portion of that is actually tax. You get a donation. Or let me see.
Tax deduction.
Yes, yeah. So a large portion of that is you get a charitable tax receipt for your donation because you are donating to the MacLennan. And so that's one of the benefits too of this fee is that you actually get it back in a tax receipt. But we also have a nice program for junior benefactors. So anyone that is under the age of 40 has a reduced price. So $1 a day, $365 for the year. We're trying to make art more accessible, and this is a group this is a demographic that might be starting out in their lives and early on in their careers, young families. So we want to make it as accessible for those young people to also become benefactors. And there's a number of other benefits too with your benefactor fee. You get a family membership, you get free entry into our Family Sundays program, which you can bring your kids, and you get some discounts in our gallery gift shop and on some of our classes, special invitations to our events or exhibitions.
Do you see interest growing in the MacLennan and the art community? Because I think a lot of people who haven't been involved and haven't been there think it's kind of a shishi-foo-foo thing.
Yes, no, I completely understand. And I think that's a common thought amongst many galleries, about the AGO or, there's a number of different galleries in Ontario. And yeah, maybe that feeling of, oh, this isn't a space for me. I don't understand it. It might be elitist, white gallery walls. But I think with the MacLennan, we're really trying to break down that barrier and let the community know that we are a charity, a gallery that's here for you, to serve you, to provide unique experiences that contribute to your life and to your memories with your children, with your family. We do lots of events in the community for Canada Day or Family Day, Winterfest. So yes, I think it is a challenge, but I'm hoping that people come to the MacLennan and see what we're all about, and that it's a discipline of art that should be as accessible as music.
All right, take some of the suspense out of this with a website and an address where people can find you. I know where it is, but tell the people.
Yes, so you can visit our website, maclennanart.com/become a benefactor, or you can visit us in person at the MacLennan Arts Center from Tuesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 37 Mulcaster Street in Barrie. And it's great because what you also can do, if you're a regular visitor to the Barrie Farmers Market, that's right across the street from us. So we're on the diagonal of City Hall. So you can do your little shopping on Saturday morning and then pop by the Lazy Tulip for a nice little coffee. And then you can come by and visit us at the reception or service desk and say, hey, I want to learn more about the benefactor program.
Perfect. All right. So again, the 27th, people should sign up ahead of time, or can they do it that day?
We recommend signing up ahead of time, but if you just want to come and sign up the day of, that's fine too.
Andrea, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely. Thank you so much for letting me share information about our benefactor program and our fundraising initiatives, and I hope people come by and just visit the MacLennan.
He's been at it again. Rock 95 afternoon host Macaulay doing chores for charity. Still some time to reel him in for a good cause. Will Conkin reeled him in between assignments to see what you've had him doing.
So let's start from the beginning. What is Chores for Charity, and maybe how has it evolved over the years?
It's been something I've done every March for years, and that's why I called it March Madness. The madness comes from 31 days straight of pledging to exercise. Also 31 days straight of eating clean with no junk food, no alcohol. So that's the madness. March Madness, obviously, brings to mind the basketball tournament, but when you put on paper March Madness for kids, it doesn't really say what it is. Chores for Charity, pretty definitive what I'm doing. I'm working to help benefit local youth. So 31 days straight of exercising has evolved from silly workouts and hard workouts to chores. Like, people are getting me to lug wood, pick up dog poop, sweep things, cut wood. I had to do a lot of that last year. And so that's where it's kind of evolved into from a fitness challenge to a do manual labor challenge.
And then how has it been so far? Have there been any outrageous things?
There's been, like, the beauty of Chores for Charity is that it's a win-win-win, because you get to obviously help local youth. You get to make me do something. You can play puppet master and literally force me to do something. But I film every challenge, and so it creates great content. You get to see this insanity. And so from a business standpoint, if you run a gym, you're a fitness trainer, or you do anything that's physical, it's a commercial. You get to showcase your business while giving to charity. And so I've gotten to do things that I didn't know what it looked like training with firefighters, putting on firefighter gear, hauling hoses, running stairs, going up the ladder on the trucks, doing that whole thing. When would a non-firefighter ever get to experience that? So that was wild. On the other side of the spectrum, there's carrying a chainsaw, wearing a tutu downtown Barrie, which visually looked very strange for anyone that drove by. Heavy chainsaw, walking up and down for 2 kilometers, working up a sweat in a ridiculous costume, causing a lot of rubbernecking. So there's just two ends of the spectrum that showcase like where this can go.
Have you ever had to tap out of any of the challenges?
The closest I've come to tapping out was when I trained with the Cheer Pride All-Stars, the young girls cheerleading squad, before they went to an international competition in Florida. I had to train with them. And these are like little girls that are in tip-top shape, and I had a migraine headache and was close to throwing up by the end of the training session. It was wild. Luckily, I made it through, but it was the closest I came to, like, I don't know if I can do this.
Is there a challenge that you secretly don't want someone to suggest?
I scooped a lot of poop and I chopped a lot of wood last year, and I feel the physical effects. I think I did something to my shoulder because my form sucks. I'm not experienced. Also, kind of the beauty of it is you can put me into awkward situations I'm not used to, but I did mess up my shoulder. So I'm like, please no more swinging an axe on wood because it hurt.
If you had to do one challenge that you've done in the past for every day you had to do it, what would it be?
Well, pushing the Corvette across the Paul Sadlin Motors lot was cool because it's getting up and close and personal with a high-end vehicle that I have no business being that close to. That was a cool one. I'm pretty used to doing cold plunges and ice baths, and so when people think they're going to get me by making me jump in cold water, I'm like, hey, I can do that because I try to do it every day. So that's one that it's like I do it anyway. Hey, if I can make some money off it, sure.
Mm-hmm. And then if you could choose one of your coworkers to do one of these challenges, who would you choose and what would it be?
Well, on the subject of ice baths, I know that some listeners up at 6 Mile Lake want me to like cut a hole in the ice myself. Like, so there's some manual labor, do the sauna ice bath kind of thing back to back. And they've been wanting me to bring Rachel with me. And so she's dead against any cold, won't do it ever. So like if I'm playing God and waving a magic wand, it would be to get Rachel to do an ice bath.
Absolutely. What's been the reaction from the community about this initiative?
Well, because I switch it up every year and I choose a different youth-based charity, we try to spread the love. And so Candlelighters Simcoe being the benefactor this year particularly, they're a group that they don't have the giant galas where thousands and thousands of dollars are raised. And those are awesome events, don't get me wrong. But we're doing an initiative that isn't just going to be lumped with everyone else's contribution. We're doing an initiative that's going to make a difference. Like, this money is going to be noticeably impacting local families that are impacted by childhood cancer. And so seeing that difference get made is really cool. And knowing that we're helping vulnerable people and seeing their gratitude has been amazing. So that's probably the best thing, is just seeing the gratitude and seeing people that, don't get government funding. They're not getting grants. It's self-sufficient with no money coming in from anywhere else. It's all fundraising. So getting that level of an impact.
How can people get involved or donate? When do they have till?
You have until March 31st to go to rock95.com. Very simple. There is a form you fill out that makes the challenge, and there's a clickable link to make the donation. So once you donate to Candlelighters Simcoe, you then have the power, and I have to do what you challenge me to do. So you fill the form out, make the donation all in one spot, rock95.com.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian and Will for their input, to Matt Latter for his technical touch, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on Blue Sky and X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and there's our daily Kickstart podcast available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakeley. Hope you'll join us again next week